This is why some Japanese people are racist. First of all, over 95% of people living here.
You know what I've always found interesting, and it has nothing to do, well, it has a connotation to what she was talking about, which, by the way, go watch her video, very interesting. But I've always found it interesting how people outside of Japan always are so quick to defend Japanese people for their xenophobic or racist tendencies to foreigners. She was going around, well, not going around, but she was explaining to the world of her people's cultures to try and kind of clear the air and explain why Japanese people act the way that they do towards foreigners. Right, because they don't get exposure to different types of people. When you do have those exposures, they act differently. Okay, cool, whatever. What I found interesting is that in the comment section of our own video, people are obviously defending the Japanese people, saying that, oh no, they're just, they don't know any better. It's only ignorance, basically infantilizing them. And to put it more broadly, they're treating Japanese people like children, babies, people with lack of function to be able to comprehend simple explanation. Do you get what I'm saying? It's weird. We only do this to Asian people, where we treat them like they don't have the mental facilities to comprehend their own actions. The Japanese people know what they're doing. If they're discriminating, they know exactly why they're discriminating. It's not something that's too complex for them. But then again, I start thinking about, other places, like places in Africa, like Kenya, Ethiopia, or maybe Ghana, that don't have exposure to Europeans or Asians at a higher frequency as well, in my opinion. But you never hear stories of, Ghana or Kenyans discriminating against people who don't look like them. So it's odd that the Japanese people have developed such a tendency, despite the fact them being 99.9% Japanese. Secondly, it's harder for me to accept it, just from the outside looking in, because you have something called the internet. You can just learn about these people, and you probably see them a lot more often than you care to admit, I think, personally, right? Especially with American media, that shit gets shoved down your throat anyways. Big pause on that, but you know what I'm saying. I just find it very interesting how we have people who are very quick to infantilize and somewhat baby Japanese people and trying to excuse every and all action that they ever do, And when you criticize Japanese people for their behavior, right, you are seen as almost a bad guy for not being understanding to their discrimination and to their racism to some extent. You even have people who will defend Japanese people's, way of treating foreigners because deep down they want to be able to treat foreigners like this and get away with it. Because let's be honest, Japanese people, they do get away with treating foreigners very badly. And when I say foreigners, they use the word foreigners, so I would assume they're obviously talking about Europeans, other Asians, Africans, and other groups of people that I don't know exist. They treat all of them, right? Very xenophobic way and racist way. But if you actually pay attention, their xenophobia and racism is very different to different groups of people. Like, for example, I think if I'm remembering this correctly, the Japanese people, they don't really like Koreans that much. And they treat Koreans really badly over there. But that same discrimination wouldn't be found to someone of maybe Germanic descent or someone of, I guess, Italian descent, I suppose. But again, if you look at it from someone who's of Kenyan descent or of, Moroccan descent, their experience will also be different. So the Japanese people, they know about the differences of people enough that they discriminate them based not just only of how they look, but also they also discriminate them based on what they've heard about them as well. So they've also connected with the rest of us. So it's not like they're completely isolated. They get their information from the outside world. So I'm pretty confident they've heard some things about the Arabs. They've heard some things about, African people. They've heard some things about Europeans. And based on those informations, they act accordingly. So they're willing to take in information and they're willing to learn. So that lady that was making the video made a really good point, All the Japanese people need is being more educated about other people, understanding that not everyone has a similar stereotype and people are different. So I don't know, I just find it very interesting. Also the fact that how we treat them. Like we got to stop infantilizing them. We've got to stop treating these people like they don't have the mental capacity to comprehend their own xenophobia and racism. And we've got to stop defending them when they do shit. Like if we're going to treat everybody as equals, right? And treat everybody as human beings on an equal playing field, that means we also gotta criticize when a culture does something that, quite frankly, is actually hurting them a lot more than it does benefiting them. Because listen, I am not saying that the Japanese people, in order for them to stop being racist, they have to have different people in their country. No, they can literally stay a 99.9% Japanese ethnic group perfectly fine. But when they do decide, right, to let people come visit them and indulge in their cultures, they've got to do a little bit better job at the very least to not discriminate. Do you know what I mean? I mean, think about it this way, right? We Africans, right? We have every prerequisite to just hate everybody across the world based on how they treat us. We literally have the very right and the reasoning to back it up, to hate everybody. But somehow we don't. Somehow we're still very welcoming, very very welcoming to our countries and stuff like that. We treat them well, we feed them, we do all that stuff. You don't usually hear people go to different parts of Africa. Like for example, people who go to Kenya or people who go to Ghana, you don't hear them say the natives in those countries treated foreigners badly on a regular basis. You don't really hear that. And these two countries, these citizens there, they don't get exposed to different races all the time, right? Aside from the fact when you go to the deeper ends of Africa and you see those kids running away from a white person, that's a child running away, right? We can't use a child's experience in that matter. But when you see native people, like, like when they do the interviews with the Maasai ethnic group, they don't treat the whites or the Asians, mostly white people, who come there differently. They welcome them, they sit them down, they feed them, they do all that stuff. So it's not an excuse, to be honest, really, to say that because they are a 99% ethnic group, that's why they're racist and stuff. No, because there are 99% of other ethnic groups in Africa, right? Who still manage to be welcoming people, despite the fact that they know the whole world hates them for existing. That's my point, right? And I know I've seen a lot of people in the comments as well. I think I've touched on this as well, who are using the Japanese people as a model example, even to the point of telling them, continue to be racist, continue to be xenophobic, because we want to do that as well. Because look at our country, we let the foreigners in, and now our country is destroyed. It's a massive exaggeration, right? Massive exaggeration, but that's what they want. So a lot of these people also look up to Japanese people and that 99% ethnic group, and they're saying, yes, you're doing it well. That's why when you hear that the Japanese population is declining really badly, it's hurting them as well, because they're like us. But yeah, I don't know. For me personally, here's my thing: if the Japanese people can treat all groups of people equally racist, I'm cool with that. I'll be honest with you. I'm fine with if they do that. But the fact that they're still doing that differently is like, come on, bro. And also, I want to hear from the Japanese people. How do you feel when the Westerner, right, people outside of Japan, treat you guys like you guys don't have the mental capacity to comprehend what you're doing? Because it's almost babying at this point. It's like when a child does something bad and we're just like, he's just a child, he'll learn. You shouldn't really hold him accountable too much. It's like we treat Asians really differently when you think about it in terms of their behavior, but hold everyone else on the same standard across the board. It's like, come on, bro. Asians are humans being too, like, so they can be criticized. That's all I'm saying, bro. But for the Japanese, keep up the good work producing anime. I value you guys for that. But yeah, I'm out.